Welcome to Stockholm, the home of Abios.
Come on in.
My name is Oskar, and I'm one of two founders and the CEO of Abios. We founded the company in 2013, so roughly 8 years ago, and we're the world's first B2B data provider within esports. Today we deliver industry-leading data and technology across the entire globe. And we have three main categories of products that we deliver today. Firstly, we deliver statistics and data through our API. We deliver visualizations through our widgets. And we calculate probabilities and deliver that through what is more known as the odds. I wanted to start off today by giving you some context about the building that we're in. As you can probably see behind me, we're sitting inside a theater. And this theater was built some 200 years ago and is actually one of the oldest still standing theaters here in Stockholm. On the very top floor of this building is the Abios head office. And the reason that we chose this very unique and special location is that we are opposed to the generally accepted and dogmatic view that gamers are fine being in a dark room or that they don't really care about the location. So we have really taken the exact opposite view of that, and we've placed our whole tech department in the best office space, the best room, with the prime view of the entrance of the Baltic Sea coming in towards Stockholm. And that room, we fill that with our developers, our data scientists, and our mathematicians, because being grown people and working full-time, we spend the majority of our time awake at the office, and we want to ensure that our people really enjoy coming into work for us and that we facilitate both innovation and creativity, and basically it's just a nice place to come and spend your days. A question that we get asked a lot is how esports data differs from regular sports data. And in essence, it's actually very similar. There are certain games that are team games, and there are certain games that are individual games, just like a regular sport can be either football, which is a team sport, or it can be tennis or golf, which is an individual sport. And the data and the structure that our customers look for needs to uphold the same kind of qualities as it does in regular sports. Something that we have to work a lot around is the integrity and the compliance around the data. And when we're talking integrity, we deliver products and we ensure to the best of our capabilities that there isn't any fishy behavior going on or any match fixing. And if we suspect something like that, we will flag a match and alert our customers of it. And we need to ensure that our customers can provide the products that they want, regardless of which region or which jurisdiction that they're in. And so we deliver compliance products to ensure something like player ages, for example, where in certain countries it's now only legal to offer betting or sports books in or on matches where a majority of the players are above 18. There are really three main differences between esports and regular sports. First of all, it's the quite obvious one. It's the digital nature of esports. Secondly, it's the function of delays due to what's called fog of war, which I'll explain shortly. And thirdly, it's that the games, or you could refer to them as sports, are owned by somebody, the game publishers. So relating back to the first point, the digital nature of esports, that naturally comes with a lot of opportunities because all the data is registered on a server. So you can get enormously granular and very detailed and very fast data to build and provide products on that we can offer our clients. The downside is that it sometimes creates certain difficulties in terms of which data points or which statistics to focus on when you're building a probabilities product, because it's easy to consider too many data points and maybe even overfit the models. The second point is a pretty big question, which I'll mention briefly here, but it's the delays due to fog of war. So the difference there in esports in relation to regular sports is that in a regular sport, everybody can see the same thing. If you're watching a football match, everybody can see all the players, they can see the ball, they can see the entire field. In esports, some of the map is hidden to one or the other team. And having information about where the other team is obviously very advantageous. And as a result, the way that esports has been structured is that the games are sometimes played in real time, but then streamed in what we call live. So we differentiate between what's real time and what's live. And the reason that this is done is so that the teams are not able to view the actual stream, which is then live in the viewer's perspective, and see what the other team is doing. And this creates some challenges, but also some opportunities in terms of how we handle the data and how we build the products. And we want to basically facilitate and build a structure for the future of esports that reduces the delays, because we want the viewers to be as close to what's happening in the arena or what's happening in real time as possible. And one of the problems that we need to solve there is obviously the integrity question in regards to viewing or the possibility to view the other team. The third big difference between esports and regular sports is that the games or the sports themselves actually have an owner. It's the game publishers. If you consider football or ice hockey or any other traditional sports, the actual sports themselves are not owned by anybody. Anybody can go out and play a tournament or set up a game, or go and play with friends. But when it comes to esports, everybody in the ecosystem, everybody who operates here, is actually at the mercy of the game publishers, because it's up to them to change the fundamental mechanics of the games or the sports. They can change the terrain, the items, the rules really, and they can decide who gets to run tournaments and who gets to operate in the industry. So it's highly important for all of us actors to always be acting in a professional manner and in the best interest of the actual game publishers. The good news is obviously that everybody in the esports ecosystem is not at the mercy of one single game publisher. There are many, many different games. At Abios, we currently cover around 21 different games. And all of these different games have different game publishers, and it is in the game publisher's interest that the esports ecosystem really thrives and works well as a marketing tool and a retention tool for these games. But nonetheless, from a data perspective, it's very important to consider that although there are lots of possibilities with accessing servers and being able to access very granular and fast data, you still need to account for the fact that these games are actually IP that is owned by the game publishers. I think it's about time that we head upstairs to our actual office in order to meet the brains behind all of Abios technology. His name is Anton, and he's also the other founder of Abios and the CTO.
And I want to start to talk about how we work at Abios with esports data, how we try to put it together in a way that it's as useful as possible for different people around our industry. And that really starts out with how we collect the data and what means there are to collect data in esports. Obviously, we have the same means that you would find in any other sports, being manual data scouting or using computer vision to extract data from video streams. So I'm not going to talk that much about those two, because I think they might be familiar to anyone who's already in sports data in general. But the third way, which is unique to esports, is that we can collect data directly from a server. So as a comparison to regular sports, what you see is basically everything, right? You're inside the game, you can see frame by frame everything happen on a millisecond level. And not only does that bring us more data, but it brings us a lot more accurate data compared to any manual scouting or any computer vision. And that really sets up the whole esports industry, whether you're in media or in the sports betting industry, for some really unique possibilities that we're gonna try to come onto a little bit later here as well. But it also brings on a few different challenges. But before we go into any of that, something that's important to keep in mind with esports is no matter how you choose to collect the data, whether it's manual scouting, computer vision or server data, you'll more or less always have more data at hand than you would in any other traditional sports. And the reason for that is really that most esports are, the games that they're based on are built from the ground up on data. Data from the matches, data about players, data about teams. So even in the case where you're scouting manually for data, you'll look at the stream or you'll be at a tournament where there is lots of data visualization. So the baseline in terms of data availability is at a completely different level to what you see in traditional sports. And there's also something important to discuss here around data availability or general coverage, because esports is really a sort of an umbrella term for a lot of different computer games. And currently at Abios we cover 20 of these games, or even more than 20 at this point, and all of these work a little bit differently. And in all of these games it's not even possible to work with server data, as the game publisher hosts the servers, or hosts the matches I should say, on servers that are not accessible to the general public. Or for that matter anyone who has had a discussion with the publisher, which is the case in some other games, that you need to have a formal relationship. While in some other games basically anyone can host a match, and you can work with that data as you get access to the match and the people playing it. But it really sets up a sort of a unique situation where if you want to have full coverage of something or a particular game within esports, you really need to know what means of collecting data are available to you and what's doable from both a data but then also obviously a product perspective, which is a big challenge in itself. And carrying on from that, there are also some different things, especially in relation to the sports betting industry, that you need to figure out in esports that doesn't really work the same way as you might expect in other sports. As an example of that, from a compliance perspective, are player ages. You obviously see a lot of young players within esports, as it's computer games that generally have a very young player base and audience. But the problem in a further sense is that there is very little formal structures to keep track of those ages. So you need to figure out some sort of less formal ways and new innovative ways to make sure that you know who's playing the game if you can't see them physically or through a stream, but also what are their ages, and can you be sure that something that they've added into a game client is actually true and correct. So a lot of these things are the things that we work on a day-to-day basis with at Abios, and have sort of built a working a method around over the past 8 years that we've been doing this. And it's a lot of these things sound fairly straightforward and simple, but as you multiply it up by the number of games that we cover, it really becomes more complex. So that brings us on to what I think are some of the unique challenges that we've seen in the esports sports betting industry specifically, in relation to all of this data and sort of the technologies around it. And the first thing is really the level of detail of data in itself, and how much the end user or the punter in a sportsbook is already sort of informed about this data and knows how it sort of works and is put together. And that brings on a certain need of knowledge in terms of the games that you want to build products around. An example I want to bring up here is the score line in a Dota 2 match is something that is, one might think it's one of the team's kills or maybe the other team's deaths, but there's a lot of finer attributes there in terms of how those kills or deaths are attributed as well, that you need to know about to be able to build a good product in that game. That really, sort of from a product perspective and a user experience, that's very important, right? That a punter feels that he knows what he's wagering on and so on. But it also becomes even more important in a sportsbook setting, as there is some legal compliance around making sure that you know what you're putting up bet offers on and so on and so forth. So that's something, the knowledge of the game is something that you can't really understate, I think, as you're building products in this space. And that obviously becomes a little bit more complex again as you multiply this by the number of actual games that are popular within esports. Again, I think there are a smaller number that are very popular, that make up the majority of the industry, but to build a good product, I think this has been shown many times in the industry, you need to have a broader coverage of games to really speak to the punters in this industry. So that builds a lot of complexion a complexity around how you structure a product, how you sit down and think about what do I want to achieve with this product, what means of data collection are available to me, and then sort of specifically what data points do I need to build this product, and are those data points available in the live sense or historic sense that I need them to be. So that's a really important part, I think, of structuring or building this forms of products that derive from esports being very data dense and the end user being very knowledgeable about the data itself. All right, thank you for coming by, guys. Until next time, cheers.
Bye.